Can everybody hear me? Is that clear? Okay. Just thank you, Zach, for inviting me to the University of Chicago. And thank you to all those people that helped Zach to make this possible, because often these invitations are a little bit of a team effort. So thank you very much for having me here. So the context for this talk, as you all know, the title of this lecture is on curatorial intelligence. During this talk, I will define a notion of curatorial intelligence and discuss my involvement with dOCUMENTA 13 and various projects at the Banff Centre. I first heard the term curatorial intelligence in discussion with the German art critic Jaan. We were talking about the field of curatorial studies with respect to contemporary art. Curating contemporary art is now recognized as a profession within the university system, and I'm not sure what the situation is in Chicago, but in Canada, for example, in Toronto, I think almost every university, York University, University of Toronto, OCAD, which is now a kind of art university, they all teach some version of curatorial studies. So I just think this is a kind of burgeoning field. And anyway, Jaan and I were talking about how to advise students who want to go into the curatorial profession. More and more, I've been suggesting that they study art history and find their way into the museum or gallery space via internships in writing, etc. I say this because there are a limited number of positions for curators of contemporary art, and an art history degree offers more flexibility. For example, there are many more positions for someone with a degree in art history, such as professor of art history, curator of contemporary art, art educator, than there are institutional positions for curators of contemporary art. So you can go to a curating program and start working as a curator, but the chances you could actually move into a museum and then become a curator within a museum situation might be is a little bit more difficult, I guess. While we were talking, Jaan surprised me and strongly defended curatorial programs. He spoke about how art historians and curators of contemporary art possess very different sets of skills, and the latter embodies something we can refer to as curatorial intelligence. Of course, I agree with him. So what exactly is curatorial intelligence, and why is it relevant today? I think it's important to make an argument for an acknowledgement of the curator of contemporary art's knowledge and skill set. We can start by asking, what do curators of contemporary art actually do? In the course of a week, a curator whose focus is contemporary art might research and develop an exhibition proposal, make judgments on lists of artists and artworks destined for acquisition, group exhibitions, or solo presentations, visit artist studios, write texts and or oversee the publication of their catalogs, advise patrons on their collecting activities, lecture to students, which I'm doing now, fundraise, discuss with the development office upcoming projects that require private sponsorship, travel to speak on panels, attend openings, see exhibitions, meet with artists, art dealers, art critics, journalists, and collectors. And I think this is quite different from the work of the art historian, although there's a lot of overlap and crossing over here. But I do think that an art historian is generally with the art object researching in a different kind of way. I'm not saying that the two disciplines are absolutely distinct, but I think the actual everyday work is quite different. Central to much of this work is supporting the vision of the artist to the best of one's ability. In almost every institution I've worked in, it has been important to protect and support fully what the artist wants to do. There's always someone working with you who is looking to lower the costs of a necessary piece of technical equipment or crop or write over an artist's image. These are small details in the larger scheme, but I believe much of the work of curators of contemporary art lies in the details. In the care of these kinds of details, too, lies the notion of the ethical responsibility to the work of art and to the artist. From 2000 to 2006, I worked at the National Gallery of Canada, where I was curator of contemporary art, responsible for exhibiting and collecting art made in the last 25 years, both in Canada and internationally. During this time, I learned a great deal about the building of collections and about the work of an institutional curator who manages a collection versus one who works in a contemporary art space with temporary exhibitions that keep coming in and out. While my studies introduced aspects of this world to me, there were no opportunities to study how a major work is chosen for a collection, and then the technical way it slowly enters the institution and eventually the collection. While I worked on exhibitions for the National Gallery of Canada, the majority of my working hours were taken up by my collecting activities. Few of my peers understood this, and they would always ask what exhibitions I was working on, rather than what I was buying for the collection. It points to a bias in the contemporary art world. The immediate and somewhat ephemeral capture the imagination of the majority of practitioners, more so than the acts associated with permanence, which are somehow deemed less exciting. I studied curating contemporary art at the Royal College of Art. Looking back, curatorial school was emphatically a transformative experience. It seems to me that Teresa Gladau, our course leader, believed there was no single right way to be a curator. She was not interested in orthodoxy of any kind, but rather in the multiple possibilities the profession offered. While the course did not declare a preferred methodology, it is fair to say I took from it a set of values or principles. These values and principles have shifted and changed over time, but not in major ways. I know their roots are in the course, but with each successive exhibition, job, project, and text, these values and principles have morphed into something slightly different than what they were before. What follows then is a list that in some way defines my understanding of curatorial intelligence at the moment. So one would be, most importantly, work closely with artists and provide the best conditions possible for them and their work. Listen to them and protect their vision. Number 2, be international in your outlook, but always keep the local and national in view. If you are building a national collection, make sure also to buy works by international peers. So any artists that are great and anywhere need to be seen with an international framework, in my view. Number 3 would be research. Read books, magazines, and journals, but most importantly, see as many exhibitions as possible. Number 4 is value the object. Look at it again and again and again. Number 5, remain open and curious, but at the same time maintain a critical attitude. Number 6 would be to write. I think you learn a huge amount by writing. It's a great skill to have, but you really learn what you're trying to say. So writing is very important. 7, do not fear large institutions and do not be afraid to ask questions of them. Number 8 would be follow intuition, take risks, support and buy new work by emerging artists. Number 9 would be to know the market. Number 10, be transparent when teaching others about curating and be prepared to reveal doubt and complexity. Much of the work is hard to see and difficult to understand. So something I often think about when I see exhibitions, this would be more in kind of public institutions, is that you know, as a curator, you know basically any work that you do, you've been working with a team of people, you don't work individually. The profession leads people to believe that you work individually, but you don't. And when you go to shows, I always wonder why you rarely see the curator's name up on the wall anywhere. You rarely see any of the other people that helped actually put this show together. And you see that alongside, let's say, or you don't see this alongside, you might go in and you could see a major installation by somebody like Stan Douglas, and there would be a list of credits, Janet Cardiff, George Burst Miller. There'll often be a list of credits on the wall of everybody who is involved, but you don't do this with exhibitions, so I'm kind of curious about that invisibility. I also think, just here, it's interesting to think a little bit too about, at this particular moment, more and more we're starting to write a history of exhibitions, so instead of a history of art, a history of art objects, a history of exhibitions, and we're starting to see more books written in that territory, but I think it's very different, the kind of view into that territory from the perspective of curators versus the perspective of art historians and the kinds of ways that art historians go into that territory. So I just think it's in a way time to value that kind of curatorial voice also in terms of writing history. So be passionate about what you love in the art world. I think it's very important. That's my last point. I'll also say here is just kind of a beginning thinking on curatorial intelligence, and I think it's a subject I'd like to spend a little bit more time with, and I'm sort of starting to actually see a book, and I'd like to take this a lot further. This is really only the second time I've given this paper, and it's just something that I've begun thinking about. So from here, I'd just like to move into talking about Banff, where I currently work right now as Director of Visual Art. I would argue that a similar kind of curatorial intelligence has guided much of my decision-making at the Banff Centre. In the almost 5 years that I have worked there as Director of Visual Arts, I have grown the program in an organic way in terms of quality and excellence. I'll say here too, Banff is a very particular kind of place. Everybody who comes to Banff lives in a kind of hotel-like setting, and I can't really grow the program in terms of numbers and say I want to expand and have lots more people here because we don't have rooms for everybody. So when I came in, it was very much looking at how could you shift and change this place, and put your stamp on it, put your vision on it, and it couldn't be about growing in terms of numbers of people coming through. It could be growing in terms of quality and excellence. So that was really how I directed my vision there. So my vision has focused on the idea of preserving the site as a safe place for the artist to experiment. I sometimes refer to it as a pre-curatorial space, as it is more lab-like. I oversee 4 strands of activities. So one would be the creative residency program. We have about 250 artists who come through that program a year. Number 2 would be the Walter Phillips Gallery, for which we prepare exhibitions, public programs, and publications. The third area that I look after, as Zach mentioned, is the Banff International Curatorial Institute, for which we develop conferences, think tanks, and publications. And a fourth strand would be the production of new works. So we actually commission new works. We work with artists to realize those works of art, sometimes at the center and sometimes off-site in other places. And generally, we're interested in projects that will somehow be out on the world stage. Like, we're not producing them just for the Banff Centre, we're producing them for other places. So I live in Banff, Alberta, Canada. It is a small resort town of about 6,700 people located in Banff National Park, Canada's oldest national park, established in 1885. The park is huge and encompasses 2,500 square miles of mountainous terrain, with numerous glaciers and ice fields, forest, and alpine landscapes. Some people compare it to the smaller European countries. So this is the town here, and then nestled on the side of Sleeping Buffalo Mountain, which is the kind of small mountain you can see there in relation to all the other mountains. And so you can see the Banff Centre just on the hillside there. I don't know, will I get a little arrow coming out? No, but you can just see the kind of campus nestled on the hillside. It functions, looks like and functions sort of like a small university. So this is a shot in the summertime. It's one of our residents. It's Lake Minnewanka. This would be a winter shot of the lake, same place. So it's an aerial view of the Banff Centre. It is remote and surrounded by trees and mountains, as well as the wild animals who live with us. So many of them are dangerous, and we warn everyone who visits the centre. This animals in questions so it's a grizzly bear. There are black bears, cougars, and elk. So a lot of the artists that come to the centre are generally coming from urban environments, and they have no idea what it means to encounter one of these things. So we do give lessons on how to manage the situation, because we don't want to lose anyone. So let's look at the first strand of activity, creative residencies. Residencies offer a unique opportunity to explore, expand, and develop artist practice, as well as facilitate theoretical and intellectual growth through interactions with other artists and visiting faculty, whether artists, curators, or critics. We offer the luxury of time and space for artists to create new works. Research, experiment with different techniques and modes of production. Artists are encouraged to explore all our facilities regardless of their primary discipline. One of the things I notice when artists come to the centre these days is they all want to do ceramics. And again, it's like one of these things like, what on earth is this about? And you kind of, when I first came to the Banff Centre, I looked at all the studios. all the kind of, if you like, real estate of the department. And there's a huge amount of space being taken up by ceramics. And I thought, this is really crazy. I don't understand. But needless to say, every artist who comes in likes to play around. It's like one of those things, maybe they skipped an art school and they kind of want to get their hands dirty and play around with this, with clay. It's consistent that artists want to do this. So I've left it. I also thought too that, if you like, one of the oldest ways of making things is making pots, and it's been around for a long, 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 long time, and there's no reason to kind of get rid of it now. So I've just left that all intact. And I guess you could say a similar thing about photography, analog and digital, and I've left our analog, all the labs and chemicals and all that kind of stuff in place as well. I think it's still a relatively young medium. So we have two types of residencies, thematic and self-directed, and what we now call the BEAR program, Banff Artist in Residence. That's a self-directed program. I'm going to focus on the thematic residencies for the course of this presentation. A lot of the slides from this presentation come from the last residency that happened, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but this is a hike up Buffalo Mountain, or Tunnel Mountain, that mountain you saw right at the beginning, the Banff Centre is nestled on. And the artists in the last residency just took a walk up there with a portable record player. They played Tannhauser when they got to the top. They're singing, I think, and they smoked cigars and did a little bit of photography, plein air kind of work. So. All thematic residencies are led, for the most part, by artists or someone in a related independent position, such as a critic or curator. If you believe, as Willem Sandberg, a past director of the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, did, that artists are individuals working not so much in the present as in the future, then the artist is a person who, more than any other, is creating the basis of the future world. Then artists are the right people to go to when you're looking for someone to run a residency. So artists form the faculty for most of our thematic programs. They're responsible for the guest list and developing the themes, design, and structure. So when I find somebody who I think has got the right kind of sociability, the right kind of capacity for doing one of these things, I'll invite them, and really I turn it over to them. You tell me what you want to do. And if I see any problems or issues, I'll let them know, because I've done this for 4 years now. I know what to catch and what not to. But generally, everything is pretty much driven by the artist who's running the residency. So it's Jaan Vervoort who ran a residency. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. So various guests that are around. So each program is a one-off experiment, and like a university, we have new faculty each year with occasional exceptions. I do invite popular faculty to return. I try for the most part to have the majority of faculty and guests come from abroad. The primary reason for this is that Canadian art students who make up a portion of our intake have little durational contact with international artists in school. At most, an international artist may visit a Canadian educational institute for a few days. So in having international artists in Canada for longer periods, we were providing an alternative to the status quo. So this would be the program that just happened, the soiree retreat, led by Ragnar Kjartansson, a team of people, Austus Gudesdottir, I believe, and David Thor Onsen. Ragnar and David are currently working on a piece for Performa. They were commissioned to do one of the main new works for Performa, so it's coming out of performance art. This was the image he gave me to promote the residency. The Banff Centre has a rule where you're not allowed to have alcohol in any image that you put forward, and I'm not sure why they didn't catch this, but it went through the marketing office. So. The Canadian and international participants who register for our thematic residencies are brought together under the umbrella of a common idea put forward by faculty. That is what attracts them to apply in the first place. Through interaction with peers, discussion groups, studio work, and formal lectures, and studio visits from visiting artists and curators, the thematic resident hopefully gains something productive from these new ideas and insights. So artists can make the most of their time while they live at the center. They live in what some report to be a comfortable hotel-like environment where their beds are made and their rooms are cleaned daily, and all their meals are prepared. This is the dining room, and there's a pool and gym below it. It's a very snowy day. So the last residency, which just came to an end, was led by Icelandic artists Ragnar Kjartansson, David Thor Jonsson, and Austus Gunnarsdottir, who's Ragnar's partner. You can see Ragnar and David there. It's one of the residents who's singing with him. They performed one night. They did a country and western hour. And one of the residents, a young artist who's just graduated from University of Art and Design in Vancouver, she had actually studied opera as a child and completely given it up, and started talking a lot about how she loved country music when she was in Banff, and she came up on stage. She was a guest in their concert and sang a fantastic rendition. I don't know if any of you know the song. I'd never heard it before. I thought it was great. She's acting single and I'm drinking double. So fantastic. So the soiree retreat residency, as it was described for publicity purposes, the truly essential artist, this is written by Ragnar and company, the truly essential artist needs are tranquility and camaraderie. In the crisp Canadian autumn, 3 Icelandic artists who have been working with performance art, cinema, and music throughout their career, together and apart, will seek to inspire fellow artists with a situational, performative residency. The soiree retreat is aimed at artists working with performance, video, music, painting, poetry. Who cares? It will be a retreat in the mountains for crazy work and constant intellectual stimulation. The residency will be very much in the romantic spirit with hikes and poetry readings. Soirees will be held once a week where participants will share their work and obsessions. It will be a contemporary idyll in the Rocky Mountain Arcadia. The research will be situational. We will seek inspiration from the surroundings as well as from the outside world we each inhabit and we all bring with us. The whole situation of being in Banff is a little performative, so why not take it to the max? Wagner and cigars. The soiree retreat will be a celebration of Banff, its ghosts, its banality, and most of all, it will be a time for artistic tranquility and reflection. So I should also just say that many of these photographs that I'm showing you, they're not photographs that I took, and I generally, I'm running a program, I'm very busy, so I don't necessarily see these things that happen. I see the residue, if you like. So all of these photographs have been taken by other people. This particular image is part of a video that's in progress I showed you at the beginning by one of the residents of this program, whose name was Ramona, she's got a very Baroque name, Ramona Lola Angelico. So. And these were all the residents who were on the program. So this is just to show you Country and Western Hour, another shot from that. So Ragnar Anastas, who helped to lead the residency. Just a lot of sitting around the fire. That's David Thor Jonsson and Pete, who was on the residency. They had a swingers night in the town of Banff, so that was getting dressed up, ready to go out. Ragnar had asked everyone to come with evening wear and fancy costumes, so for these soiree nights, everybody had to dress up. This was a very important part of the whole exercise. So Daniel Wong is the other fellow. He's part of the Cedar Tavern Singers, artists in Canada. Daniel and Pete again, just getting ready to go out at night. One night, there's a very big hotel in Banff called the Banff Springs Hotel. It's like a kind of old European castle in a way, and a kind of magical looking place in the landscape. And one night, the artists for their soiree decided to go down there, so they all dressed up. This is just before they're going down, and they all dressed up, and Ragnar suggested that they tip the waiters very well down there, and they had a few drinks, tipped the waiters, and then they moved into this room in the Banff Springs Hotel and just took it over and held their soiree there, singing and doing all their various performances that they had performed for that night. So it's quite special, I think. It's Ragnar doing some plein air in a place called Marble Canyon. So he took his job very seriously, I have to say. Of the 3 of them did. Of all of the people that I've invited out to lead residencies, I don't think anybody's worked quite so hard. So he was always going. So just a walk on the mountain, and the guy with the striped sweater on is a curator from Iceland who curated Ragnar's project for the Venice Biennale, Marcus. I've just lost his last name, but he came out to visit. So they're hiking. It's the Tannhauser on the mountain. A little photography. That's the top of Tunnel Mountain as well, looking out onto the Bow Valley. Ragnar Anastas and David also requested that we make a television program, so all of the best acts of the soiree were chosen, and they then took over the, we have a television studio on campus. They took over the TV studio and invited a live audience to come, and they filmed something that they call Soiree TV. Again, I was working, I haven't seen it, it's just being edited now, so maybe when I get back I'll be able to have to see Soiree TV. It's filmed very much in the style of a kind of 70s live program before a live audience. So. The well-known Vancouver artist Ken Lum has now led 2 completely distinct master classes, and I've invited him back to teach a third, Art and the Effects of the Real. Lum's residency is organized very much like a class given by a strict and intellectually intense professor at an art school, quite different from Ragnar. It's like, in a way, Ragnar and sort of the team were completely not interested in judging anybody, and judgment is a very important part of what Ken does. So, as with any institution that has been established, the Banff Centre has its own terminology. Everyone who enrolls in our programs is considered to be a professional artist already and referred to as a participant instead of a student. Ken refuses this nomenclature and calls all participants students. The Centre is classified as a non-parchment institution, meaning it is not a school and it does not confer degrees or certificates of any kind. Ken, who runs his masterclass in a very determined way, lecturing, giving occasional pop quizzes, organizing crits, scheduling badminton games, dinners and films, has a great line that he uses to inject fear in his students. So he says, I can't fail you, but I can make you feel like I've failed you. I just wanted to show you, this is a still from a video made in Banff by Duane Linklater and Omeshkako Cree, who is recently a student of Ken's. Linklater is a singer and drummer and was thinking about ways to work with music while at the Centre. By chance, he met and collaborated with his classical cellist on a new video where he taught her one of the songs he had written for his daughter's jingle dress. The video is a document of this translation. It is an example of a cross-disciplinary work made by chance at the Centre. So basically, you can't hear Duane at all, but you hear the cellist trying to play the music that Duane is singing. So it's a short video, but very beautiful. So he just made it by chance. It was one of those things that just happened magically. You know, there are many different kinds of artists training at the Centre. So there are musicians, opera singers, and every so often, you know, people intersect and do something together. So this is a very quick, one-off kind of thing, but really lovely. I should just also mention the Centre also has a program. It devotes a lot of its budget to Aboriginal artists, and Aboriginal artists come to the Centre for free every January and February for a residency. And when I first came to the Centre, I thought, this is a bit strange. This is a kind of Aboriginal residency. Why wouldn't Aboriginal artists want to come to all our programs? And why should we really have this? And I guess I spoke with the first group that came in while I was at the Centre and learned that this residency was really, really important to them. They like the idea that there's a separate place for them to meet. Many of them have not met each other before. So to have 6 or 7 weeks being near one another, learning about one another is very, very important to them. So the program is still in place. However, I try as much as possible when people are interested to fully support these artists who want to work in other residencies that we do that are not necessarily Aboriginal. The art critic Jaan Vervoort is in the center of the photo. He recently led Why Are Conceptual Artists Painting Again? Because they think it's a good idea. So that was the name of his residency. He approaches the residency format very much as a school and gives lots of lectures and seminars along with regular crits. This photograph was taken during a panel discussion that took place in conjunction with the opening of an exhibition of Silke Otto-Knapp's work at the Walter Phillips Gallery during Jaan's residency. So they're talking about, basically about Silke had a dancer performing in her exhibition, many of her paintings were about performance and dance. And so we had somebody who teaches classical ballet in Gray, runs the classical ballet program at Banff, talking to a more contemporary dancer, Flora, who's there. It was an interesting discussion, and Jaan was managing that. So another facet of my work at the Centre is the production of new work. I talked to you about that. So this is a commission we did with Brian Young, and so this is the very first public artwork that he's made, and this is a kind of, taking, I guess he often works with some kind of language of modernism, if you like, and so working with Harry Berthoud, you have the chairs here in the Smart Museum, thinking of that, and then I guess having Berthoud meet animal antlers, so all of the animals that live in the park that have antlers, major animals that live in the park that have animals are represented here, so kind of more like deer creatures, so elk, caribou, and moose. So, and they're functional, they're for sitting on, so it was his choice to do that. So I think that's the elk, maybe the moose in the background, caribou, so. In 2009, Ragnar Kjartansson was chosen to represent Iceland at the Venice Biennale. Shortly thereafter, I was visiting Reykjavik, and within about 2 hours of meeting Ragnar for the first time, he said something like, I have a dream, I'd really like to shoot a grand piano on a frozen lake. I'd like to do this, And I didn't know if we could do anything like that at the Banff Centre. I had no idea, but I knew that we had a lot of frozen lakes, and there were about 250 pianos on campus. So I figured if we couldn't bring the two together, what was I in that job for? So I just said, yeah, let's do that. So much of the preparatory work for this 5-screen projection was done in advance, but Kjartansson and his collaborator, David Thor Janssen, came to Banff for a month to write and fine-tune the musical score and shoot the video. So you can see different images of them playing through Banff, playing throughout, I guess, the town of Banff and into sort of Lake Minnewanka. So during the production phase, we decided also that we wanted to exhibit the end, as the book is called. And this is kind of part of the organic character, I guess, that I've applied to running the Centre. Like a lot of what I do comes out of who I meet while I'm working there, in a sense, and the kinds of relationships I make. So this is the installation. So since the end's coming into being at the Banff Centre, this work has had an exciting trajectory. It was exhibited to great acclaim at the Venice Biennale and then acquired by the National Gallery of Canada, the Museum of Modern Art, and the Dallas Art Museum, as well as it has been exhibited in cities such as Edmonton, Vienna, Frankfurt, and Pittsburgh. So it's something that's had a wide exposure already. So a third strand of my activities includes overseeing the Walter Phillips Gallery. What happens there is a responsiveness to the present. We aim to exhibit new work, and sometimes we commission work, as we did with Ragnar Kjartansson and Melanie Gilligan, a young artist from Toronto who I believe is now based in New York. I'd just like to run through a few slides quickly. So these are paintings of Silke Otto Knapp that we showed. And she had come and run the first residency that I organized, and she was really intrigued by the dancers who came to the Centre and spent a lot of time working with them and thinking about them. And then we, from there, sort of decided to actually show the paintings that she'd made of dancers all together, because she works in various subject matters. And she asked if we could bring in a dancer to actually dance in the studio in the afternoons. So Flora performed in the studio, and how Flora performed was very much, it wasn't a response to the paintings, but it was very much a discussion with Silke about what should happen in this space. It was quite beautiful. So this is images of the Serving Library by Dexter Sinister. This is the first time the gallery was used intensively for the residency program. In fact, the gallery was the site of daily 3-hour seminars. So when I started working with Stuart Bailey of Dexter Sinister, we started talking about doing an exhibition. We started talking about doing a residency, and as the kind of discussion grew, it started turning into an exhibition, and then he actually wanted to move the residency into the gallery space and actually have the residents meet for 3 hours every day in the exhibition and have seminars. Very, very intense, the most intense probably in terms of seminar kind of led discussions that we've had. So the group met every day at this table. The exhibition, if you like, this is a section of it, was thought very much as a kind of prototype for what the serving library would be. The serving library is a foundation that the two artists have put together. It's a foundation devoted to art and design, the study of art and design. And what's on the work, they always just thought of as decoration for the serving library. They're all works that have appeared in the magazine, now defunct magazine, ... that Stuart and David produced. So there are a variety of different kinds of objects. They said when they were thinking about the serving library that they were thinking about a pub, and when you go into a pub, the kind of decoration that's on the walls. So, but they also used those objects that are on the wall. They used them as part of their teaching practice. And they also worked with all the residents to decide how to hang them. So it was very much a collaborative endeavor. And what's on the wall is a variety of art, things like artworks, the book covers, album covers, actual records, paintings, prints, silk screens, the things that you actually make silk screens with. So this was a kind of prototype for the serving library. And they thought of it as a kind of model almost. When we came into the gallery, we'd put the carpet down originally. They asked us to pull up the carpet so you'd have this separate kind of space so that the wood floor would be revealed. Just around the corner from the wall that we saw was the actual library per se. So all of the ... journals are there in the library. The neon, which is a kind of logo for their project. You can see. Just a little bit of a close-up. I think it's a Joseph Albers Ouija board and made of wood there, particle board. The round circles are talking stamps from Bhutan, so they're like little records that you can play. People might recognize other things. Just a little bit close-up of the material. We've recently just shown My Best Thing by Francis Stark. It's a feature-length animation that was made for the last Venice Biennale. Using free text-to-speech animation software, Stark employs Playmobil-like avatars to chronicle episodes of random video chat that are at once sexual, philosophical, and absurdly funny. We're also producing a new book on this work, just a kind of one workbook. The curator, art critic, writer, Mark Godfrey will write the text for it, so we're looking forward to that. So the fourth strand of my work at the Centre is overseeing the Banff International Curatorial Institute. The Institute organizes conferences and think tanks and publishes books on topics of special relevance to curators of contemporary art. I've organized 2 conferences, Trade Secrets and Our Curators Unprofessional. So from Trade Secrets, Barbara Fisher, I think at least 3 people in the audience will recognize her. I've organized 2 conferences, Trade Secrets and Our Curators Unprofessional. From Trade Secrets, we developed Raising Frankenstein, Curatorial Education and Its Discontents, a book that offers an overview of recent thinking on curatorial pedagogy, designed to elucidate, define, and build on current debates surrounding the subject. So various guests have come through this program. This is the book. Candace Hopkins, Ken Lum, Uda Metabauer, Paul Trott-Smith, Monica Dieter, who are in the front row there. So, yeah, I think Monica, I think that's Dieter. Yeah, Dieter's in the photograph, actually. Yeah, you can see. Yeah. So from this brief introduction to my work at the Banff Centre, you get a sense of the artist-led programming and how extracurricular events are integrated and all fit together. Visits to the Centre are generally periods of intense and intimate exchange. And I think it's important to emphasize that there are no expectations on the artists who come here to produce anything, other than those artists who really come, like Ragnar came with a project, he wanted to realize it. So we don't have any pressure to all the other people who come to produce anything. That lack of expectation opens onto larger questions about the place of artistic residencies and changing notions of creative or intellectual labor. What is the place of inefficiency or non-productivity? Do we need to create spaces in which artists can precisely risk failure, spaces that are removed from the market and its relentless demands for new product? That wraps up my work at the Banff Centre. Well, not quite. I've also been asked to speak about my work for Documenta 13. With respect to the team, I am one of 5 core agents for Documenta. I'm assisting with the project for a number of I'm assisting with the projects for a number of artists and on other special projects. I've been involved in at any number of levels with respect to selecting a number of artists, not necessarily all Canadian, writing texts and assisting in the development of various projects, as well as supporting fundraising endeavors. All of this is very exciting. However, I'm overjoyed by the development of the retreat, a section of Documenta that will take place at the Banff Centre. For those artists who do not feel the centre is remote enough, there's another slightly more elusive zone known as the Latent Colony. Located in the forest behind the centre, there are 8 studios for writers, artists, and musicians. This site provides the inspiration for the retreat residency, which will constitute a section of Documenta 13 and will take place at the Banff Centre during the course of the exhibition in Kassel, Germany. So it'll be at the Banff Centre August 2nd to 16, which is toward the end of Documenta. Franco Bifo Berardi, Bruno Bostils, Caroline Christophe Begorgiev, Pierre Wieg, and Gaspar Tamash will be faculty for 30 participants. The intimacy is a necessary part of the formula for a successful residency. So kind of if you go over 30, things become too chaotic, so it's going to be quite a small group. And one of the reasons people come there is really to have an intimate experience, and the minute you have larger numbers, things shift and you can't give people that anymore. So this is and this site, the Latent Colony, is going to be the thing that actually generates the themes and ideas for this particular retreat residency. I can't go into that in detail right now. I'm sorry. The retreat residency highlights what I've tried to place at the heart of all my programs: not the finished product, not the completed artwork, but a space of research, of exploration and becoming. I've supported programs that raise questions about the character of our society and the modes of artistic and cultural investigation being introduced today to create new modes of becoming and belonging. Thank you very much.